time, you had a very bad addiction problem. You were addicted to mouse sports. And that's one of the worst things you can ever be fucking addicted to. That's worse than crocodile to be addicted to.
At the time.
Yeah, right. And that was predicated on the fact that you knew Nico, and you knew Nico because you played with Nico.
Yeah.
And you were kind of like his first in-game leader and mentor as he was coming through. So this is like super fucking crazy that one of the best analysts we got in CSGO also happened to play with one of the best players in the world, and possibly of all time in terms of overall skill ceiling. So how the fuck, because I gotta say as well, a Bosnian and a Serbian having a good fucking relationship is pretty wild as well. So I gotta know how the fuck you met this kid and what made, like, what you saw in him and how you got him on the team.
Oh man, that was so mad. Like, I remember Nico was he like 11 at the time, or 12 when he first started coming in to, actually I'm like probably like 13, something like that, 13, 14, no, 12, 13 years old, whatever, when he started coming to like LAN tournaments in Serbia, first with his like cousin who's still playing, and a couple of guys, because his parents own like a PC cafe from the like city where he's in, so he would like get, you know, he was there all the time, and he would get a couple of guys, they would come to a tournament. I shit you not, Richard, he had to put fucking books on his chair so he could see, you know, so he could like sit properly behind the keyboard and a mouse. Like, it was ridiculous. His parents had to come with him, obviously, you know, he's just a kid, so his parents were escorting him to tournaments, and he was the biggest fucking pain in the ass you could ever imagine. Like, I think I deleted him from Steam like 10 times at the time, because all the time he was just like mix question mark CS question mark. Like, he was playing all the fucking time. It was insane. And he was like, you know, at the time he was, you know, just some little kid, like, what the fuck does he want, you know? We have our own group of people to mix up and, you know, play 10 mans and so on. But he was so persistent, man, and he got better and better, and then finally a group of guys from another city in Serbia, Novi Sad, invited him to play with them, like to come to tournaments, because he was like just so individually skilled. And he was, you know, slowly honing his craft and so on. And I think actually the guy who gave him his first chance, like properly in a bigger team to compete in tournaments for titles, was Kasad. He played with Kasad, and Kasad was the first guy who kind of started mentoring him and all of that, and, you know, helping him become a better player, even though for a small period of time he thought Nico was cheating, but
no, but I mean, all young players go through that.
Everyone. Yeah. But yeah, that's what happened, and eventually he started getting better and better, and then in CSGO it really took off. Like, when we started playing, like, ever since the beginning, he started putting a lot of hours in, learning the game, and he was just so sick. I won't forget, like, the first practice we have against NAP, and we were like, ooh, it's like NAP, man, these guys are like so good, they haven't lost the game, probably gonna wreck us, but, you know, it's nice being on the same server as fucking Forest and Get Right. So we'll play against them, it's us two, and they're wrecking us, and some rounds we're like 1B on the T side, and Nico is like in a 1v4 with the bomb planted, and he just fucking destroys them in the 1v4, and you have like fucking Forest writing in all chat, nice one, and Nico's like, wow, you know, and shit, screenshots it or something like that at the time. So from very early on in CSGO, we knew that he was fucking insane, and for me personally, looking back at it, it's fucking embarrassing to have a player like that on your team and not being able to do something like truly significant, you know, like not being able to make a major, or at least make one of those. We attended a couple of international tournaments. There was that Star Series one when the guys got third and fourth and so on, but I feel like we could have done so much more. It's just that, as we were talking in the previous part of the show about, you know, the mentality of people here and so on, it's just that some of the players were not like dedicated enough, and that was the big problem actually in our scene. There was no talent to pick from. Like, I could not pick anyone. I couldn't pick a player because I didn't have anyone to replace him with. Like, not even remotely. Like, if I had someone who was like young at least, and he was like relatively shit, but I could see that they would like put all the time into it, it would have made sense. but you just couldn't. So you had to try and make do, but that wasn't going to work out.
So what was your relationship like with Nico? Because first of all, obviously we still haven't really got into if there was any Bosnian Serbian tension. Second of all, I know you got a big fucking personality. I've been out drinking with you, so I know what you're like. And I've seen Nico, and I've been out drinking with Nico, and I know what he's like. And people at home, you don't need to go drinking with Nico, because you remember him from the Mouse Sports days. Shut up, losing his fucking mind all the time. So was he, because he was younger back then as well, he's obviously matured and developed a lot, since then. But was there any tension between you as a strong-headed in-game leader and him as this, clearly the best player on the team and a young guy?
Actually, there was absolutely no tension, because there was nothing you could there wasn't nothing that would annoy me about Nico, so that I had anything to say to him. And he says, what the fuck are you doing here? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Not just in the sense that he was a great player. We had players who were skilled, but they're toxic as fuck. But Nico wasn't anything like that. The only flaw that Nico had as a player was that at the time, at times he would just be too aggressive. He'd get 2 kills, then to hunt for a third and fuck up, and I would say just don't do that. But as a teammate, he was fucking great. He wasn't he was always trying his best. He was trying to lift the spirits of a team. He was quiet at the time. He was younger and all of that, but there were no issues. And the whole Bosnian Serbian thing, I mean, he is in Bosnia, but that's the Serbian part of Bosnia pretty much. So I think he considers himself probably more Serbian than he does Bosnian. But there were no tensions with him. If anything, me and Kasad always had problems with the other 2 players in the team, right? Because it was always about talking to them and trying to explain things and how you need to be more focused in practice and how you need to improve yourself, because it was just a pain in the ass. Same mistakes repeating themselves and so on. But with Nico, it was always smooth sailing pretty much. That's why I was, obviously when you see the shut up, think people oh, he's so toxic, he's yelling at his teammates. In that situation, he was yelling shut up because they were still talking about the round that ended and he wanted to focus on the next round. Obviously, you probably shouldn't still yell at your teammates, but he's just so super competitive, and I don't think he should be an in-game leader. I don't think.
No, I definitely.
He's mature enough for that as of just yet, but it's just that he's so competitive that he doesn't have as much patience as you need to have as an in-game leader, for your teammates, because mistakes are bound to happen, but you need to have a proper way of dealing with it, And granted, he didn't have the best examples to learn from, Kasad first and me as well, can get very emotional and very aggravated in some situations, more than we should have at times. But with Nico, it was nothing but a great time playing with him. Just watching that little cunt, the things he did in games and in practice, blew my mind. I was like, how are you so good at this game?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about Kasad as well, because it's so crazy to me that this fucking team, right, that in fucking Serbia produced the best player in the world, arguably, right, one of them. I would say one of the best analysts in the world. That's you, in case you're wondering. And then obviously it produced a successful coach as well in the form of Kasad. And, certainly if you look at his career and how it's kind of ended up, you can't make any great claims to say, oh, he's one of the best coaches in the world. But here's what I will say about Kasad. I think he's viciously underrated. It's people just forgot about him. Mouse Sports, until now, where they've suddenly come alive again in the absence of a star player and getting rid of Spiddy. But before that, they looked the best when they had Kasad. It was after they got rid of Kasad where things really started to go to shit for them. And now he's at Renegades, right? And that's fate worse than death, I imagine, for a coach right now. But he's a smart guy. I've talked to him And I think he's a really underrated coach. So again, same sort of questions. Did you have any inkling he might go on and be a coach? And were you always impressed with his mind for the game?
I mean, about coaching in the beginning, it wasn't even a thing. But yeah, he always had a great mind about the game. He is very good at like reading the game, during the course of a game, realizing what your opponents are doing and figuring out what's the best way to counter what they're doing, right? Even if it's something very simple, but he had a good grasp of that. And I think for him, the goal always was eventually to become a coach, even for our team, because like his mechanics weren't really great, but as long as that wasn't the main obstacle for our improvement, which it wasn't, he kept on playing and he did like the dirty work for the team as well at the time, right? So I think when it comes to coaching, I think, yeah, with Mouse Sports, I mean, they got playoffs at E-League when he was there. They managed to qualify for the major, a couple of results here and there. Also, the thing is, like, what do you have to work with, right, in terms of players, in terms of the team as well. With Renegades, he didn't have a stable roster for some time to begin with, had to deal with that first, and it's a problem of who can you get to your team. Renegades is not Team Liquid, not in the sense of financial, power, or in the sense of people wanting to join that team, right? So you can't just pick any player that you like to fill that hole. But I think he does a good job. I think, obviously, as most other coaches, he's one of the examples where he could do a lot more if the coaching rule wasn't there, right? Because he can give a lot of great ideas mid-round as well, and during the game. Now he has to focus more on just preparing the team, like analyzing opponents and pointing out things. But yeah, I think he can do a lot for anything. I mean, with Renegade, just now they managed to qualify for DreamHack Masters Malmo, which is a huge thing, right? That's going to be a big tournament, managing to beat Team Liquid in that qualifier. So unfortunately, they couldn't qualify for the major, had a couple of very close games, but some obvious flaws in their game. So I had a lot more confrontations with Hassad than I had with
I can imagine that
with anyone else.
Well, you occupy similar space, right? Like he kind of wants to be an in-game leader type. That's why he went on to coaching. You are the in-game leader, and you've got your philosophy as well. So yeah, I imagine you guys are like cats and dogs.
He is like even more like strong-minded than I am, and at times we would have arguments. Like we meet up together for some, boot camping, just 2 days prior a LAN tournament in Belgrade, just play from a PC cafe, just to get that practice in. And we would actually like get into an argument, and he would like walk away from practice, like go home or some shit, and say, I don't give a fuck, I'm not gonna play the tournament, fuck all of you guys. Something like that. And Nico, obviously coming in from fucking Bosnia, it always ends up like him calling him like, come on man, like I came all the way, let's just play, we can like beat everyone, no problem, blah 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 blah. But that's the thing, we didn't really care about tournaments here. Obviously we like wanted, we haven't lost the map for like a year and a half or something like that in our region. But we were always like focused on trying to compete internationally, right? Trying to break through and all of that. That's why eventually I left the team after we won like one of the bigger regional tournaments that we had at the time, because I saw that players were simply they weren't willing to change, they weren't willing to put in the hours and put in the work that we needed to put in order to really be able to compete with the best. And I just didn't want to like waste my time anymore, basically.
So while we're just here and we're talking about coaching, we'll start talking about moving into analysis and all that stuff in just a moment. But I got to pick your brains about Peacemaker. I actually reached out to Peacemaker. I think he's going to come on the show at some point. I think after the major. But obviously, we've seen the way his career's kind of gone, and he's gone from being a very well-respected, high-profile coach to kind of, he gets a gig, the team seems to disintegrate, and then he gets a trial, and then there's rumors that he's making these outrageous demands that he wants the org to buy the players he wants and he won't work with anyone else, and then He loses that, and then he goes somewhere else. And now he's like the coach for fucking Tai Lu, like a standing coach for Tai Lu. Like, what the fuck is going on, Yanko? I mean, because he's a smart guy and a talented guy, but he seems really fucking stubborn.
Yeah, I think, I mean, obviously from the outside, it looks like he just has a specific way of doing his job, which seems like he requires a lot of authority within the team, and it just isn't something that, you know, a lot of players or a lot of orgs are willing to agree to, right? I even believe the initial reason why he left Tempo Storm at the time to join Team Liquid was in order for him to be able to in-game lead the team and have more control of the team, right? And you can see how he's had some good results with Team Liquid primarily and so forth, but it doesn't seem to last. And you wonder, like, if he can actually find a team that's willing to like comply with those demands, not obviously like buying the whole players, but just like give him like absolute control. What could he do, right? You know, is that what he needs to really make something happen? I personally believe that, you know, he should probably self-reflect a little bit and see, like...
Yeah, I think he has now. He did that interview, didn't he, where he said he was going to revise his approach to coaching, which I think, you know, like, you probably should have done that 3 jobs ago, really. You know?
Yeah, because there's been a lot of teams there, right? It's been the NRG stint, Optic
briefly with Optic, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, that gets your reputation of sorts as well. You know, why are all these teams passing on him, blah, blah, blah. That players talk between each other as well. I think for him, still, it would probably have to be one of the, like, you know, lower tier teams, like up and coming teams, because with those teams you can have more control, because, you know, you can't walk into one of the best teams in the world and be like, yeah, you're going to listen to me right now. So I think it's going to have to be something like that, and him achieving some results with a lower tier team, and that in that sense, like proving that he can still, you know, make a team better, and basically that he has kind of adjusted a little bit, because I think, you know, everyone needs a coach these days with the amount of competition going around. I think that the staff around the team is expanding. We see teams not only having coaches but analysts as well in their teams. So if you really want to be a top tier team in the world, you kind of need it. Unless you're SK and you have Fallen, then you're fine.
Yeah, then you're definitely fine. So you're let's fast forward again. You've stopped playing at this point, right? I want to talk about that process. Like, why did you decide to do that? What did you think you were going to transition into? Because I'm sure, you know, for all your talent and self-confidence, you're probably still a little bit surprised that you're like one of the go-to, you know, like you are now an official part of the broadcasting landscape in Counter-Strike, and everybody wants you on a desk. You know, we'll definitely get to the E-League major in a second. But yeah, so at the point where you quit, why did you, you know, what did you think you were gonna do?
I wasn't really sure I was gonna do anything. Like, the thing, while I was still playing, it was Game Pub, my last team. I saw the whole observing thing like happening, and EFrag had like the European Championship at the time still. So I just offered them, they want me to do this for you guys, you know, whatever, pay me whatever, I don't care. They were like, yeah, sure. So I did that. I actually had to observe with 2 keyboards on 2 different feeds at the same time, because their audio feed and video feed couldn't come from the same PC. So awesome. if I would spectate only on the video one, right, the sound would be off. So I had to be on the same player on both Go TVs so that the sound and the picture would match, right?
Right.
So I guess once you start observing like that, the normal thing is really difficult. So Petar from HLTV asked me if I wanted them to recommend me to like tournament organizers, if they need someone. And I was like, yeah, sure, if it doesn't clash with my like tournaments or some practice, it will be fine. Mm-hmm. And then we started playing. We played the Katowice qualifier, and we lost to fucking Rain and the JChem and the Party Astronaut team in like 2 overtime games or something retarded. I actually rewatched that recently because I talked with Nico about it and with Rain. And Rain almost made me want to kill myself because he told me that like he only started playing CS like 2 months before that or something like that. And he was just fucking destroying us, man. It was so depressing. So that was like really, that kind of put a nail in the coffin because Nico actually after that time, I actually like after that I was, listen, like either you guys want to fucking put in the hours and put in the work or like we're not playing. That's it. I don't want to like waste my time anymore. I don't want to keep like because I was that time I was doing this. I was like doing everything, preparing the team, like spending my majority of my day on CS. And then Nico actually stopped playing CS at that time. He said, "Nah, I'm gonna take some time off." He and one more guy, like weren't playing CS for 5-6 months. Like Nico actually wasn't playing CS at all. And then later they came back. So after that I did Katowice for ESL. Then they invited me to another tournament, Winter Finals, and Star Series invited me for their tournament to observe. And that's where I kind of saw that, okay, I'm their go-to guy now for this. They have a bunch of tournaments. Like, I'm still going to uni, you know, I still don't think this is going to be my career. I'm looking at this as like a side gig, great, like, you know, side money and all of that, but still focusing on my studies. But that's when I slowly, like, looking at the desk and everything, I thought that, you know, there's a niche here that can be filled. And after a couple of tournaments, like let's say maybe the summer of 2015, I was like seriously trying to find a way for myself to get onto a desk, like to get a chance to do some analysis even at a smaller tournament.
So I mean, it seems like such a fucking crazy leap then. So, you know, you're observing, you may be doing some analysis stuff. I mean, how does that door get opened? Because you see a lot of people who are like, you know, it's always the same complaint, right? The Counter-Strike scene is so incestuous. Everybody knows each other. It's jobs for friends, and you know all of this stuff. No one could ever break through, and it's like, I mean, it's just not true. I mean, like, you know, you broke through, Sadika's broke through. You know, there's all these examples. So what was the first major door opener for you, like that got you put on a desk and actually, you know, in front of an audience?
Yeah, that was, I mean, the first event I did, or how I got to my first event.
Well, how you get there, because I think the process is important. Like, because again, just imagine this. You know, you're working the majors. You're a retired player from Serbia, Janko, right? So people believe it's not. Yeah, people believe it's not possible. That path can't work. So I think it's important to talk about the process of like how you get to the big show. You know?
I think the biggest thing was just hang out with all the people, right? The talent, not so much the talent, but more so the people in charge of hiring the talent, right? Like Joe Miller from ESL or Mark Winter from DreamHack, and we sit there, we talk about CS, and I guess, you know, people are like, this guy actually, like, you know, sounds like he knows what he's talking about, and stuff like that. And I was always pushing. I was talking to Joe, saying, "Come on, Joe, like some smaller tournament, like I can do both. You know, I don't need to like be there for, you know, I can only do a couple of segments. You know, same to Mark, same story." And you know, they were kind of, I mean, ignoring me. You know, they didn't give me a chance for a while. And then it was the Cluj qualifier, which was in Stockholm, that DreamHack was running, and that's where actually DreamHack invited me to do it. I know Mark has been asking around, you know, for people he could invite. And I know, like, he talked to Petter from HLTV, he talked to Anders, and they both said, "Hey, you can like give this guy a chance. He knows what he's talking about." So that was like my first event I did in terms of analysis. Then after that, it was like, you know, the TWC with you, Scoots, and Duncan.
And our mutual friend Avela.
And a mutual friend Avela, that now, of course. And it was also San Jose, right? It was the one where, this is the thing, for San Jose, I get hired as an observer. So I like bring some of my stuff. I bring like a jacket and all of that. I was talking to Joe, like, can we make it? Can I get on the desk as well? He was like, we'll see, kind of avoiding me a little bit. And then at the actual event, it was Sabler who was doing the desk or someone. So I talked to him, said like, would it be okay with you if I like talk to Joe and get in like to like one best of three or whatever? He's like, yeah, man, sure, go for it. So I'm like talking to Joe. It was like, okay, so I do it there. Then the DreamHack won the Face It finals. And that was pretty much it. Like for 2015, there weren't that many events. But then like in 2016, suddenly it was like everyone just invited me. Star Series, DreamHack, ESL. That's when Pro League like started bringing in analysts for the online part as well. So I did a lot of that, and that's where it really took off, kind of.
So how did you feel you did in those early days? Like, what was the reaction? Because look, and again, you know me, I always give it to people straight. I remember having arguments with people back then when you were coming through. I was like, again, one of the guys who was out there saying, this is a talented dude, he's going to do really well. But one of the things that always used to get spammed whenever you were in the chat was fucking Resident Sleeper, right? They'd spam the Resident Sleeper, say, oh, Yanko's so boring, he's a bit like a robot, he's not very emotive. And I'm like, yeah, but like, listen to what he's fucking saying. The rest will come. The showmanship will come. It's not like Thorin just woke up one day and said, I am now the Lord of Banter. You know what I mean? You build up to it. You find your role. You find your character. And, I was trying to explain this to people, and people were just shitting on me like, classic, you're wrong. Really dismissive. So, I mean, if you're anything like me, it's like I'm confident in what I do, but I still can't tear my eyes away from the criticism, and I read it all, obsessively. So how did you think you did compared to how you were received to begin with?
I think the big problem for me, or the big thing for me, was initially I was much more worried about what I was saying than how I was saying. So I focused the most on like that the things I was saying made sense to other people, and that I was filling out the niche that I was talking about previously, and because of that, I didn't really think about things as pace, as being concise, right? As focusing on pronunciation and things like that. So that I obviously, like at the beginning, I used to rewatch all of my VODs like very, very recently. I had words that I was repeating a lot, so that's something I focused on very early on for my vocabulary to be more diverse. So about that criticism, I mean, I felt like, I don't know if it was maybe a bit too harsh for how I was doing. I don't know. I think it's hard to self-evaluate in that sense. I think it was fair to an extent.
Yeah.
But I also think that I, started improving fairly quickly and started working on those other things as well.
So, I mean, what does that entail? Because, again, when I first moved out here, I started getting kind of like a bit of like some elocution lessons, started working with people. I was starting to take on a slight American accent. And then, it kind of just dropped on me. I was like, you know what, fuck it, man. You got here pretty much by yourself anyway. So you're obviously doing something right. I don't need to change just because it's a TV gig. So I stopped doing it and started being a bit more just myself, like if an American can't, appreciate my roguish accent, fuck it, man. I mean, I'm not going to change who I am fundamentally to do it, but I did go through the process, and I know what it's like, and I know how fucking hard it is to do things like change elocution, avoid repeating phrases like mine is, or do you know, or and try and iron those out. So what kind of process were you going through to eliminate those kind of verbal tics?
So basically, I was watching a lot of the VODs, and then just it was pretty obvious. Like at that event in Stockholm, I was saying like so many times. My every fourth, fifth word was like, because I was struggling to. I was thinking so much about what I was saying. I wasn't really putting so much thought into the words I was using. But yeah, it was a lot of VOD review. And then it was also after I kind of established myself, after I got like comments from people or players or within the scene, like this guy knows what he's talking about. Or my peers. That's when I was like, okay, I've established myself that I'm not talking bullshit. Now I can focus more on, improving on these other things. So it's just like being aware while the show is going on, and as I'm coming to the desk, that okay, remember to be energetic, remember to not repeat the same phrases, think about it more. And obviously, like, practice makes perfect, right? So because of all the work that I was getting, I was doing so much that in itself it was getting better and better. About the accent thing, I was thinking about it because on one side I really like listening to myself, rewatching VODs. I don't think it's at a level where people can't understand me or anything that. I think it maybe depends on some words because of pronunciation, right? And on the other side of things, right, do you want to make yourself like sound more whatever, like it would be easier for people to understand, like lose the accent a little bit. So I'm not sure whether it's what's more beneficial, the fact that it's part of my personality, or the fact that maybe it would be more suitable for TV tomorrow or something like that. I was looking for a while, like back then, early 2016, I was actually looking for a voice coach, but there's not a proper voice coach like in Serbia, in Belgrade, that can help me like that, or at least I couldn't find one, pretty much. But again, I was traveling so much, I wouldn't have
the time to do the lessons.
So what I was gonna do, for example, maybe a little bit, I planned to do it while I was in LA for ECS. But again, because of LA is so fucking gigantic, everything's so far away, I didn't even have the time to do it. So I've been looking at some like online or Skype potentially lessons just to try it out, to see how it's like and to see if it's something that would make sense for me or not. But I think it has improved significantly over the course of the past year and a half. And yeah, I don't really think it's that big of an issue. I certainly don't think it's an issue that's going to, cost me work or anything like that.
Well, I was going to ask this later, but I'll kind of slip it in now because it's sort of on topic. I mean, a lot of people were disappointed when you weren't part of the E-League Major Talent team. I'll be honest, I was disappointed. I wanted to get you out here in Atlanta and show you my city and take you to some of the places, same way you did for me when I went to Belgrade. Yeah, exactly. I do know what you like. Yeah. So, one of the things was, I kind of, like, I in the early days when we first started E-League, I did have input and talent. I sort of told the network who was good, what their strengths were, and who we could use, and what I felt would be a good dynamic. And the network were very receptive there. But what I quickly realized was that in doing that, it was weird for me to sit in the green room, because it's like there was this perception suddenly from my friends and people I'd worked with for years that I was a corporate network guy. And I'd be like, oh, hey, fellow talent. And they'd be like, can we say stuff in front of you?
Good afternoon, Richard.
Yeah, it's good afternoon, corporate overlord. It was like that for a little bit. And there was some bumps in the road that, I won't talk about on air, because, what goes on in the green room stays in the green room unless we get hot mic'd, which happens more and more these days, it seems. After some of the bumps in the road, I realized, like, I don't want to lose the relationship I have with the guys to kind of, and it's not as important now to be that guy, to serve Turner in that capacity, because we've done, by the time the major came rolling around, we've done 2 seasons. We knew who the talent were. We knew who their strengths were. You don't need me anymore to say, yep, Anders is a good commentator. You don't need that, right? So when the talent announcement came in for the major, I was like, oh, well, Janko will probably be there. It'll be cool. And then you weren't. And I don't honestly, I'm still kind of like, if the reason was they didn't think an American audience would get your accent, certainly that was like never communicated. Like, I think it was almost like they wanted that continuation of talent that had been on the regular TV season. Like, that was more of an influencer. But I was still like disappointed, because like I like, just because my friend wasn't going to be there. But obviously, I imagine you were kind of not pissed off, not sour, because we all miss majors. I'm missing this one that's coming up. Thorin's missing it. We all have to. There's so much talent. But I mean, in your development, did it feel like a blip in the road?
Obviously, I was disappointed. I mean, it sucks to miss a major, and especially because I knew that E-League, Turner does a great job. Obviously, the E-League both seasons were amazing in terms of production and everything. So yeah. I knew that the major itself is going to be great. And that it's going to be exciting in terms of teams, in terms of competition and all of that. So in that sense, it sucked a lot for me not to be there. But to be honest, like, despite like people telling me, we recommended you and things like that, you talked to me, said like, you really need to get him there. It would be like a shame or a disgrace if he's not at the event. I somehow always thought that I wasn't going to get invited regardless. So I never got like any hope up. I certainly wasn't expecting to be invited for the tournament. And even though it sucks a lot, still in the grand scheme of things, for me, it doesn't really change all that much. I knew that still I was going to be hired by organizers. I knew that I was going to get a lot of work, that my schedule is going to be fairly similar as to 2016. So in that sense, it wasn't, that big of a deal. For me personally, like, when I look at it, like, it was strange, the fact that they had like 3 pairs of casters and only like 2 analysts, because you also get fucking reamed out. I had to do a couple of gigs like that.
Yeah.
You get no breaks. You just, at that point, the problem with that is, with that level of fatigue, you don't really enjoy like working as much, and it sucks because we love our job. We love like talking about CS. You have great games, and it's hard at times to get hyped for something when you had a 14-hour day, 2 days in a row, and now you're going into a 15-hour day, right? Yeah. And that's when kind of the performance drops a little bit as well. Again, at the end of the day, it's Turner's product in a sense, so they get to pick the people they work with. Obviously, I can't like hold any grudges or anything like that. So yeah, in that sense, it's it kind of sucks. But for me, as I said, it was a bit obvious that for whatever reason, I don't know the reason, that they don't really see me as part of their show, that I fit into that. So I mean, not much I can do about that. I am what I am in terms of like personality and my work and my focus. So what can you say about that?